Sometimes you can take a look at a place you go in restaurants. Not that I've ever been in many restaurants in my life. Don't ask me how many times we ate out this week. That's not the point here. But some places you go in restaurants and you kind of go, wow, these people have a great heart of service. There's a restaurant in town that every time, regardless of who we have, that every time we go into this restaurant, you can see the staff has been taught how to serve the people really well. Because they're always watching, always prompt, never bugging you, but they take care of all your needs. There's a restaurant in town that whenever we go there, we don't go there a whole lot. Everything is relative, remember. We don't go there a whole lot, but if there's one guy who's serving, I literally will go to the loudest, busiest section to not sit in his section. It's one of those things, I don't know if you've ever been in there, you walk in and go, oh Lord, I do not want that server. There's this restaurant in town that's that way. I'd rather sit away. For me, this person is obnoxious. He's on the verge of rude on what he says and how he interacts with people. And I know, okay, I've been in this restaurant enough, I know he's kind of joking in his own weird sense and way, but to me it's right on that edge of like, really? This is the profession you've chosen and you want to get tips out of me by acting that way? Yeah, well, hopefully Paulie's giving you a tip because my tip will get a new career. And he's been there a long time. He tries to do the job, but even when we're sitting down and having conversation, you can be in this deep, intimate conversation. Everyone around knows, and he'll walk up and go, can I get you anything else? Looks like you need something else here, buddy. I'm like, leave me alone. And I literally will, to not be TJ and super rude, I literally don't sit in that section. Now there's another person in the same place that has incredible ability to do it. We can be in conversation and he'll walk by and he'll go, I'll be back later. And later on he'll come by, would you like some more water, when the conversation isn't so deep. It's kind of that one guy has a great servant heart and the other guy kind of has a little bit, for lack of better terms, an arrogance. I don't know why. I don't know him. I don't know his life journey, his life story. But he has kind of this arrogance. And it's easy for me to turn and look and judge and go, except when I start to look at my own life. I look at my life and I look at my life in Christ at an early age, and even some days now, and I'm just like that waiter that I don't sit in his section. I'm arrogant, I'm proud, I'm rude, I'm inappropriate in some ways. See, I had this idea of serving was all about Jesus and me. What can I get out of this? All I had to do is accept Jesus, read the Bible, pray, go to church, and get other people saved. It's all about what I have to do. That's not what it is, though. What it is about what God has and is doing in others' life, and mine as well. If we really look at what God's calling us to do, it's how can we serve others? How can we help others? As I said, there's another waiter in the same restaurant. I actually sit in his section. I actually give him more than normal for me with the tip, because he has a right heart in serving. He's passionate about what he does, he cares about what he does, and he cares about those people that he interacts with for that 45 minutes to an hour. He remembers people when they come in. Oh, I haven't seen you for a while. Yeah, well, I'm trying to lose weight, so I don't come in as often. It's one of those things that you just kind of get this attitude and this personality. Very quietly, he'll fill the water or coffee. When he asks how your day is, he actually wants to know. He'll take the time and extra work for him to come back later because of that heart he has to serve. He understands that concept of service, that idea of being aware of the community and people that he's serving. Challenge for me and a challenge for us is, do we Do we, in serving others around us, that God calls us to be a light that we talked about 2 weeks ago? The last week we talked about being called into the priest role. This morning I want to do something a little different. If you don't have a pen, Christopher said he'll get pens for you. Yep. Good job, thank you, sir. After he gets his thumb manipulated. This is between you and God. And as we go through this morning, will you think about those people that God brings to mind? And I'm not wanting you to spend a lot of time thinking through, but have people, if you need more paper, I got more paper up here. Christopher, you're now also paper boy. But think about people, just as a conversation, as we go on in their conversation. I threw it over Dad's head intentionally. As we go through conversation, as God brings a name to mind, maybe God will bring a face to mind. Maybe God will bring your heart breaks for somebody and you just kind of see this. Write them down. We're going to do something at the very end with it. See, I think if we have the right heart, like the server, that we can make a dramatic impact and change people. Brennan Manning says this in a book called Signatures of Jesus. Human nature, freed from the slavery of sin, is capable of awesome holiness. If you listen to Brennan, he's a New York Irishman, and he has this brogue about him, and he's now passed. He died from cancer. But I love it. Human nature, with the freedom from slavery of sin, is capable of awesome holiness. Have you ever looked at your own journey in your own life and go, man, I wouldn't constitute me as awesome. That's not a word that I would use about me. I'm average. I'm normal. But I wouldn't say awesome is the word that would be used. But when Brennan talks about when we have this idea, when we're able to serve, when we're able to help people be freed from that slavery of sin, when we're able to be freed ourselves from the slavery of sin, we're capable of this awesome holiness. 1 John 4:19 through 21 in the Message says this. We, though, are going to love and be loved. First we were loved, now we love. He loved us first. I love that imagery that John's writing and says, it's obviously a cup of coffee for me because that's what I love in the morning, the first thing. Priorities here. First we were loved, now we loved. He loved us first. Just a reminder of God loving us first, and now we're called to love others. Notice it doesn't say in there how to love them. Or you only love certain people, or you only love this or that. And John kind of calls us out and says this, and as it really focuses kind of back again on being a light as we looked at Matthew, and last week as we looked at Peter on being called to the priesthood. If anyone boasts, if any of us say that I love God and goes right on hating his brother or sister, think nothing of it, he's a liar. Even when you start to take what the New Testament says, the New Testament makes it even more challenging. It says, if you say you hate your brother in your heart, you've committed murder. Ugh. I was having a conversation with someone and said, well, I've never committed murder. I said, have you ever hated anybody? Well, yeah. Well, New Testament says you committed murder. Oh, I need to rethink this then. Yeah. It's a hard attitude in what we do. Two servers, same restaurant. One attitude is I'm trying to get your tip. The other attitude is I'm trying to serve you. The one who's trying to serve, his heart is an attitude of service. He gets the tip. The one who's trying to get the tip doesn't get the tip from me. It's our hearts. If we won't love the person he can see, how can he love the God he can't see? If we're not that visible reflection of the invisible God in Colossians, how are people going to know who God is? You're the light, you're the priest in a ton of people's lives. Just as I talked about, sometimes my headlight worked and sometimes it didn't until my son-in-law fixed it. Sometimes the priest walks around in his garb, or the nun does, and then other times they're working out, and that's not quite appropriate for that. But it's that heart level, and that's what this is calling us to. I love this. The command we have from Christ is blunt. Here it is, point blank, no other option. Loving God includes loving people. You've got to love both. Think of a person that really drives you nuts. Do you love them? As I grow deeper in my relationship, Kincaid and his buddy are pointing at each other. Yeah, you're nuts. Yeah, okay, we love you though. It's one of those things that you just kind of start to go, you drive me nuts. But as I go deeper in my love with Christ, the deeper I go in my love with Christ, the easier it is to love people even if they drive me nuts. There are some people that absolutely drive me nuts, and I intentionally will walk the other direction, and it's not because of them, it's because of me. I know me pretty well. I know my sarcasm, and I know I may say something that hurts them potentially coming to know who Christ is. So I go the other direction. It really has nothing to do with them. It has to do with me. Because Christ calls us to love people. Even that song we sang earlier, here's my heart, here's my heart, here's my heart, now here's my life. It's a heart thing first, then it's a life thing second. If I do life thing first, then again, I'm like that waiter. How are you connected in your relationship with God? When I was like the first waiter, I connected with my relationship with God. I have to spend time in the Word. I need to pray. I have to serve. Now I get to, keyword, get to spend time with God. My routine in the morning after I make my coffee is to sit there for a period of time and go, hey, Daddy, what's up? How am I to start my day? What am I to read this morning? Who am I to pray for? What do you have on your agenda for me to do in serving? Sometimes it's as simple as taking someone fishing or helping a neighbor across the street or spending time and investing in a person's life. I get to spend time. I don't have to. I get to read to be transformed by God's Spirit. I get to pray to hear God. I get to accept the love of God where I am. And the more I do that, then I'm able to accept others where they are. Conversation with a person this week as we see our own journey and how God's accepted them. One of them they were talking and in our conversation, they were saying, one of the things I'm really starting to do is I'm starting to try to look at their life journey to the best of my knowledge. And as I look at their life and understand their life, then I'm able to give them more grace because my life was rough, but their life is really rough. They're able to look inside and know. They're able to know that they were given grace, so they have to give grace to others. Heard this quote on K-Love and says, do you want to be a great leader? Be a servant to all as Jesus was. It's this idea. You look at Scripture and who did Jesus serve? The least of those. He didn't go into the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious people of the day. He went to those that are out in the streets that were hurting, the leper, the woman that had bleeding issues, the blind guy. He went out and hung out with them and said, hey, I love you. Let me walk with you, will you? Mark says this, he sat down and summoned the 12. So you want to be first place? Then take the last place. Be a servant of all. I don't know about you. That is not really easy for me. Goes back, as I said earlier, In my earlier life, and even now to these days, sometimes I'm like, hey, it's all about me, myself, and I, and screw the rest of you. Hopefully none of you have ever had that attitude. But I have. It's all about me. What do I get out of this? Well, I'll help you and I'll keep a tally record and then you can help me later on. It's not what God says. Loving God includes loving people. If I really love, I don't keep track of those things. I just love them. I do it because that's how I'm gifted or called. I have a neighbor that's across the street and he's, I don't know how old he is, 68, I think. And he took me out to breakfast last week. And I said, you don't have to take me out to breakfast just because I help you around. I know I need to pay the debt. I'm like, I don't do it to go out to breakfast, right? That's not the reason I do this. It's something simple and easy that I know how to fix and I know how to do, and I can take care of it for you. And you can see him rustling going, I get that, but I don't get that. I guarantee you the next time he calls me or knocks at our door, Paulie says, hey, your best friend's here. As I go and help him out, I guarantee then he'll go, oh, by the way, I owe you another breakfast. I'm like, no, you don't. There's no breakfast needed. When we think about being a servant, we think about the quote of being a great leader. It's easy when you're on a mission trip to do that. Well, I'm here to serve. I'm here for this purpose and reason. I'm good. Maybe it's when you're on a service project. Some schools or some classes you have to do community service hours. You haven't had that class yet? You will. You got one? He's like, yeah, you got to do this community service, right? X amount of hours over a quarter, semester, whatever it is. It's easy to have this place of, well, I'm here to serve because of that. But how about when you do the little things? Do I let that person go in front of me when I'm in a hurry, or do I think and honk my horn at them, or maybe worse, talk about their ancestry? Do you do those little things for your spouse that you just do it because you love them, or do you grumble through it and go, this isn't my job? Do we help a neighbor shovel the snow or mow a yard because I can and they aren't able to? Or do I do it because I get something out of it? Finally, it adds up to this: love other people as well as you do yourself. You can't go wrong when you love others. When you add up everything in the law code, the sum total is love. That's out of Romans 13:10. That sum total is to love. You want to change a person's life? Love them. Changes you, transforms you, but you love them. I gave you the piece of paper this morning intentionally. And the intent is to do this. Is to take time to process through and ask God this question. Who is God calling you to be a light or be a priest to? Who is God calling you to love/serve? If we love a person, we are serving them. It's that simple. Being that light, being that priest for Christ is not that hard. The hard part is loving them. The hard part is letting God love me so I can love them. That's the hard part. Let God give you the names. It's not a laundry list. No one's going to see this but you and God. I'm not collecting it with your name on the top. It's not a test, you guys, so be safe. That'll be Monday for tomorrow in school for you. Christopher's like, oh, shoot, I forgot that test. I forgot my book at school. Bad boy. Will you take the time to listen to who God's calling you to love? You may get the names, as I said. You may have faces. You may be drawing a blank right now, but later on this week, you walk by and God goes, see that person? Can you serve them by loving them? Can you serve them by helping them out? Serving them can look as simple as this. Just love them where they are. You want to transform a person's life? Love them where they are. Love them as they are. It's so amazing to watch them kind of go, what's the catch? And when there is no catch, they start to understand it's because God's called you to love them. You ever told somebody you're going to pray for them and walk away and forget? If I tell somebody I'm praying for them, as soon as I leave, I pray for them. Sometimes I even get to pray for them right there with them standing next to me and pray out loud. But a lot of times I pray for them is just in the quietness of my own heart. I told you I was going to pray for you, therefore I need to. And what that does is that draws me back into God again more to be able to remind them. Help them to help them. Help them to just say, I can do this. 2 years ago when we had the windstorm that knocked down a bunch of trees in our neighborhood, Polly and Kobe and I went, we did 3 or 4 neighbors. We have a big old chainsaw. Okay, cool. We can drop these trees so your power doesn't go out, or when the power came back on 20 some hours later, or so your house doesn't get hurt anymore, or your car, or whatever it was. We can do that. Simple, easy things. Just help them. How about this? Befriend them. You guys, especially at school, think about the person that's kind of that person that nobody wants to play with, nobody wants to hang out. Kincaid, don't look at him like that. Nobody wants to hang out. He's now crying, Kincaid, you bully. Nobody wants to hang out with. What would happen in their lives if you just went and became their friend? Ask, how you doing? You want to play today? Want to go hang out? Mind if I sit with you? Hey, I got an empty seat here. One that's more powerful is share your journey with them. Share your journey in and of God and with them. There are people, oh, you're a pastor, so you've got it all together. I'm like, oh, Lord, no, I don't. I don't have anything together. My life is as messed up as anybody else's, and maybe more. And as I unpack and as I share my journey, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. Invite them to a small group or church activity to service. What's another option that you come up with that you are able to do to help to be with them? Brennan Manning says this, again in Signature of Jesus. You can tell which book I'm reading because I use quotes of that a lot. In our words and deeds, we shape and form to our faith every day. We make people a little better or leave them a little worse. We either affirm or deprive, enlarge or diminish the lives of others. How do you do that with God? Regardless if it's a passing at the store, a sitting down with a deep conversation with a friend, we have two choices. We can enrich their lives in who God is, or we can deprive them of who God is. God is calling us to be a servant to all. Will we come and serve? Will we come and take the time to sit down and say, God, here you go? Or do we look at our lives and look at our journeys and, don't really love them, God? Then as Scripture, as we looked at this morning quickly, is that we don't really love God. My hope and my prayer is that through this fall, that we take the time to love others, and in loving others, that we grow deeper in our relationship with our Abba. God, thanks that you call us to a place of love. God, that you call us to a journey to love those that we don't like. And God, you call us to a place to love you more. God, help us to be reliant on your love and your strength, on your mercy and your grace. That we invite you to come and sit down, to speak to our lives, speak to our hearts on who you are calling us to love and serve. In your name, amen.